New moon. A new moon occurs when the moon is positioned between Earth and the sun. The side facing Earth receives almost no direct sunlight, making the moon nearly invisible in the sky. Although it cannot be seen, the moon is still present and continuing its orbit around Earth. This phase marks the beginning of the lunar cycle, which lasts about 29.5 days. The new moon has an important effect on Earth's oceans. During this phase, the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun work in roughly the same direction, creating stronger than average tides, known as spring tides. High tides become higher, and low tides become lower. The darker night skies during a new moon also benefit astronomers because moonlight does not interfere with observations of stars, planets, and distant galaxies. Many animals that depend on darkness for hunting or protection are also affected by the reduced nighttime light. Waxing crescent. The waxing crescent phase begins when a thin sliver of sunlight becomes visible on the moon's surface. Each night, the illuminated portion grows larger as the moon moves farther from its position between Earth and the sun. This phase is often visible shortly after sunset and is one of the first signs of a new lunar cycle. The impact of this phase on Earth is relatively subtle compared to the new moon or full moon. Tides begin shifting away from the strongest spring tide conditions. The increasing moonlight slightly brightens the evening sky, which can influence the behavior of nocturnal animals. Some species use changing light levels to determine feeding times, migration patterns, or mating activities. Human cultures throughout history have also used the first visible crescent as a marker for calendars and important events. First quarter. The first quarter phase occurs when half of the moon's visible surface appears illuminated. The moon is now about 1/4 of the way through its orbit around Earth. This phase is especially popular among astronomers because the contrast between light and shadow reveals many details on the lunar surface. On Earth, the moon's gravitational pull still affects the oceans, but tides are less extreme than during the new moon and full moon. This phase is associated with Neap tides, when the gravitational forces of the moon and sun partially offset each other. As a result, the difference between high and low tide becomes smaller. While these tidal changes may seem minor, they can influence coastal ecosystems, marine feeding cycles, and navigation in shallow waters. Waxing gibbous. During the waxing gibbous phase, more than half of the moon's visible surface is illuminated, but it has not yet reached full brightness. The moon appears larger and brighter each night as it approaches the full moon phase. The increasing brightness affects nighttime environments across Earth. Nocturnal animals may adjust their behavior because predators and prey become more visible. Researchers have observed that some species change their feeding patterns as moonlight increases. The moon's gravitational influence continues to shape ocean tides, though the strongest tidal effects are still yet to come. This phase also provides increasing natural illumination during the night, something humans relied on long before artificial lighting existed. Full moon. A full moon occurs when Earth is positioned approximately between the sun and the moon. The entire side of the moon facing Earth is illuminated, creating the brightest phase of the lunar cycle. This is often the most recognized and celebrated lunar phase in human culture. The full moon produces some of the most noticeable effects on Earth. Like the new moon, it creates spring tides because the sun, Earth, and moon are aligned. Coastal regions experience stronger tidal ranges, which can affect marine ecosystems, fishing activities, and shoreline conditions. The bright moonlight can significantly increase nighttime visibility. Many animal species respond to this increased light by altering hunting, feeding, mating, or migration behaviors. Some coral species even synchronize mass spawning events with the timing of certain full moons. While many myths claim that full moons strongly affect human behavior, scientific evidence for dramatic psychological effects remains limited. Waning gibbous. Waning gibbous phase begins immediately after the full moon. Illuminated portion starts shrinking, though most of the moon still appears bright. Night after night, darkness slowly spreads across the lunar surface. The environmental effects on Earth begin shifting away from peak conditions associated with the full moon. Tidal forces gradually weaken from spring tide levels. The reduction in moonlight influences nocturnal ecosystems as animals adapt to darker conditions. For many species, this phase signals a transition period between the brightest and darkest parts of the lunar cycle. Last quarter. The last quarter phase occurs when half of the moon's visible surface is illuminated again, but on the opposite side from the first quarter. The moon has now completed about 3/4 of its orbit around Earth. Like the first quarter, this phase is associated with Neap tides. The tidal range becomes smaller because the gravitational forces of the moon and sun act at roughly right angles relative to Earth. Coastal environments often experience calmer tidal variations during this period. The reduced brightness compared to earlier phases creates darker nighttime conditions, affecting both wildlife behavior and sky visibility for observers. Waning Crescent. The waning crescent is the final phase before the cycle returns to the new moon. Only a thin crescent remains illuminated, usually visible before sunrise. Each morning, crescent becomes smaller until it eventually disappears from view. As moonlight reaches its lowest levels, nighttime environments become increasingly dark. Many nocturnal animals benefit from the reduced visibility, while others that rely on moonlight may become less active. Tides gradually strengthen again as the moon approaches alignment with the sun, preparing for the next set of spring tides during the new moon. This phase represents the closing stage of the lunar cycle and the beginning of preparation for the next one.